For every human life, there is a point where the story simply stops. It is the final, heavy boundary that defines our existence, a silence that eventually claims everything we've built. In the 6th century BC, the ancient Israelites lived within this silence. Their temple was a ruin, and their people were scattered across Babylon. They didn't just feel defeated, they felt like a nation already buried in the ground. Psalm 129 captures the sound of that era. Sagitnan pagpagihirap, tinawag ko'y Panginoon. In the midst of suffering, I called to the Lord. This isn't a polite prayer. It is a shout from the bottom of a pit, where the walls are closing in. The Israelites weren't asking for better politics. They were demanding to know if their God had any power over the actual finality of the grave. The prophet Ezekiel walked into this atmosphere of decay. He didn't offer a platitude. He brought a direct, jarring message from the divine. God's promise through Ezekiel was specific. Ibubukas ko ang inyong libingan. I will open your graves. For those listening, the question was immediate. Was this a beautiful poem about national pride? Or was it a terrifyingly literal claim that God would undo the physical biology of death? For centuries, that sentence sat on the page. It remained an unanswered tension, waiting for a moment in history that would prove whether those words were a metaphor or reality. 600 years later, in the village of Betania, that moment arrived. The figures are simple. 2 sisters, Marta and Maria, and their brother, Lazarus, who was dying. Jesus was miles away, separated by a jagged and completely arid wilderness. When the sisters sent word of the emergency, they expected him to rush across these canyons to beat the clock. Instead, Jesus did something inexplicable. He stayed where he was for 2 more days, allowing the clock to run out completely. By the time he reached Betania, Lazarus had been in the tomb for 4 days. In that climate, and by that hour, the body had begun to fail. Marta is the one who says it out loud. Nang nangamoy na po siya. He already smells. By waiting until the 4th day, Jesus ensured there was no room for doubt. This wasn't a recovery from a coma or a medical anomaly. It was a confrontation with a corpse. At the cave entrance, Jesus met a grieving Marta. She was standing at the edge of those dark stone steps, looking at the same boundary that has stopped every human since the beginning of time. Marta believed in a resurrection that would happen someday, at the very end of time. But that abstract hope felt hollow while her brother was rotting only a few feet away. Jesus changed the timing of the conversation. He told her, Ako ang muling pagkabuhay at ang buhay. He pulled the concept of resurrection out of the distant future and placed it into the present moment in his own person. He ordered the massive stone to be removed, and then he shouted directly into the dark, Lazaro, lumabas ka. Lazarus, come out. When Lazarus walked out of that cave, the poetry of Ezekiel died away. The opened graves, promised centuries before, were now a physical fact that people could see and touch. But Lazarus eventually died again. Why does this specific scene in Judea matter to a modern person who is still afraid of the dark? The Apostle Paul wrote to the Romans to explain how that one event in Betania changed the biology of every believer. He wanted to show how a historical miracle becomes a personal reality. Paul describes 2 forces, the flesh, lamon, bound to decay, and the spirit, espiritu, the breath that resurrected Jesus. Paul claims this spirit dwells in you, linking your physical body to the same power that called Lazarus out. Because of this indwelling, the end of a life is no longer a terminal wall. It is simply a transition of the spirit. Every year, these readings appear on the 5th Sunday of Lent. They are placed here to prepare us for Holy Week, reminding us that the upcoming story of the cross does not end in a tomb. We have traced this promise from a valley of dry bones in Babylon to a limestone village in Judea, to the very center of our own breath. The message of the Lenten season is that the universal boundary of death has been broken from the inside out. Seen through this powerful lens, we realize that every single grave is a door that is already unlocked.